Hello and welcome to Jam Presents, a podcast series by me, Mike Groves, and a good mate of mine, Jason Cripps. In this fifth series, we're heading to Camp Pleasant as we try to catch a murderer who just so happens to be a campmate in Killer Camp. Killer Camp episode 3, a bit less preamble to this episode. I thought episode 2 was going to be a lot shorter than it was, but then listening back, I ranted about Carl quite a bit, didn't I? And we probably spent a much longer time than was necessary talking about a dick rocket. And for those of you listening to Jam Presents for the very first time right now, yeah, I just said dick rocket. Before we start, let's touch upon how contrasting this episode was to the last. We'll go through it as we normally do, but it really feels like the things that we were calling out for, such as the scares from Bruce and a proper death scene, we actually got this week.
Yeah, the scares from Bruce, we basically called that out.
Yeah, we wanted that. And the death scene of, well, we'll get into it, but again, like, it wasn't just a button press for once.
Yeah.
Really surprising. So yeah, it felt like it redeemed itself, or at least brought it back from the depths of the dick rocket last week. And honestly, with the twist at the end, I genuinely love this episode. I really, really enjoyed it. But was that because the bar was set so low that anything was going to make it better?
Do you think that was our idea in the first place? Be like, we'll have a solid episode 1, then we'll really put it down to episode 2 just to make episode 3 a little bit better.
And then everything we watch now, we're like, well, at least it's not a dick rocket.
At least it's not episode 2.
I mentioned last week that there was a production error in episode 3. And what I found out, actually, it was basically that all of the press releases and the documents that came out alongside series 1 or weeks before that it aired, they all mentioned that there were 2 killers. And I don't know about you, but I was really amazed when they revealed that. Well, I mean, okay, so there are a few people listening that aren't actually watching along, but at the end of this episode, there's a dramatic twist.
A dramatic twist that they spoiled in all the press releases.
They spoiled weeks before the series actually aired, and they told us. Can you imagine knowing that was coming? Like, as in getting to episode 3, but thinking, oh, this is probably the episode where they reveal that there are 2 killers. Brilliant. Yeah. But then we've just done exactly the same for anyone listening that isn't watching.
See, I remember on the last episode when we spoke about it and you said there was a production error, I honestly thought it was more like a costume malfunction or
what I was looking out for was that we saw scenes with people that have already been eliminated in them.
Or something
so
very
they
obvious.
Show like someone running across in the background that was killed in the episode before.
Fergal's in the...
Yeah, exactly. Just been cut wrong. So it was less production error, more error of the production company, or at least the press pack. Or
the fact that we are expecting that, does that speak volumes of what we think about the show? Potentially.
I'll be honest, the editing and things like that, we can't go into it again. We speak about it all the time. We speak about the great songs. We speak about you not liking the run-in scenes and, you know, the montages and whatnot, and the challenges are weak. But there are other bits that I really like, and we've mentioned the campfire story and stuff like that. So it's not all bad, this show. There's just a few tweaks that would actually make it good. And on paper, we've said this a number of times, haven't we? On paper, sign us up. It sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, on with the episode. We're reminded of Warren's departure last week and that we'd already lost Nuri and Fergal in episode 1. The way Jacques words it, I'm going to have to cut it in.
Jacques.
He is so... I've got sound bites of you saying that every time.
What, Jacques.
But he explains that we've lost people, and he's just so deadpan and just dry.
Warren's taken a dick to the eye, balls deep. Nuri's got no head anymore. And Ferg's blown up.
This one started significantly different to the others, and it's what we were crying out for from the start, some real action from Handyman Bruce as the lights go out in the cabin and Bruce walks through the bedroom, scaring all the campmates out of their skin. And I think Eleanor says at one point, I pooed my pants.
I've never been more scared in my life. I pooed my pants.
I thought it was fantastic. That should be happening all the time.
Yeah, every episode we should see that.
But I think later in the episode as well, they must see him in the bushes or something.
The edge of the lake.
Yeah.
And they're looking across. That is great.
He should always be around.
It was that opening scene as well that Lewis on Instagram messaged about. So I mentioned last time that we got the message saying he and his dad have rewatched Bruce bursting through that door on loop. And it's just really, really good.
What the fuck?
What the fuck?
Yeah, I just wish that he could crept in later at night just stood in the corner or something.
Lay
You
on
know what I mean?
someone's
And then,
bed
yeah, just make like a tapping noise, just enough for people to wake up.
and then see him.
Yeah. And he's literally just did that.
We've still got up 2 more episodes left, so let's see where it goes. I wonder whether or not they learnt as well from this episode for series 2. It's going to be interesting to see
But you need to
which direction it goes.
Scare the shit out of your contestants.
Yeah, because after this episode, you watch this episode, you think this is what the show should have been from the start.
Mhm.
Definitely.
It's a shame that scene doesn't go on longer because you see him sort of
Scrambling
get
out
out
of
of
bed, yeah, all tripping over each other.
It's because Bruce starts laughing.
It wasn't Eleanor that took the additional pillow this week. It was Rosie.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's fine, wasn't it? Oh, Rosie's fine to have the pillow.
Yeah, criticise Eleanor.
Eleanor takes it. Killer.
There's plenty of talk early on who they think the killer is, actually, and Holly tells us she thinks it's Sam, and she also tells us that the rest of the group do too.
Rob is possibly on the radar, but Sam is like everyone's prime suspect at the moment.
So they go to play their first game, the first one being the one for cash.
Ka-ching, 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 jackpot!
Another running montage to the lake that you really like.
I get why they do it. It's very 80s, but it is just a look at me.
And it's done 4 times an episode.
Yeah. Just to string it out.
Yeah, true, to make it a 40-minute episode.
Put more slow-mo in.
So they're heading to the lake to play Playing with the Boys, which Rosie says she'll be really good at.
I missed that.
Oh, superb. I'm sure Bobby says this one's called Playing with the Boys, and Rosie's like, yeah, I'll be good at this one then.
This is Playing with the Boys.
I'll be good at this one.
There's something I picked up that Holly said, because she said about anyone being the killer, and then Bobby says, or you are.
Yeah, doesn't she say, if one of them was the killer? And it's almost like she's saying, if one of them was the killer. And you're like, ooh. And then she went, or me.
Yeah, but because I think last episode I said that I'd love Holly to be the killer.
That would be
because I just like her vibe and the way she's playing the game. But when she said, I don't know if it was Bobby. Was it Bobby saying that, or you are? Could have been. Surely that's obvious. Not her being the killer, but like obviously anyone.
Yeah, you don't have to say that to correct yourself or anything.
No, exactly. Yeah.
I just don't want anyone to go because we're all getting on so well.
Do you want the killer to go?
Yeah, but I like them all. It'd just be such a betrayal if one of them was the killer, which they are.
Yeah. Or you are?
Bobby tells us how his mum used to hold him down under the lake. And I mean, it's been a long time since I saw Friday the 13th, but is that not like basically Jason Voorhees and his mother again? I don't know if his mother held him down under the lake or...
They just drowned, I think.
Oh, okay.
I lost a toe.
I don't like your mum, Bobby. She just sounds a bit cruel.
I will not be rooting for you in this game.
The boundaries are just... I can't differentiate between Killer Camp
and Friday the
13th anymore. I just don't know what's real. Well, none of it. Idiot. Look, on with the show. In this task, they all have to choose a boy and bring it back to shore. Once back, they need to launch it into a hoop. Those that they get into the hoop count towards their total. Sam stays back to look at the map. The others go for boys, and he tells them which ones to go to. He's not doing himself any favours by getting some of the amounts wrong, and Carl criticises him for being a leader and taking charge, which someone's got to do it.
Yeah, I put that down. I thought he jumped straight on Sam, saying, "Oh, Sam's taking over." I think he didn't take over. He just used his initiative.
It makes me think sometimes. I guess they all probably get similar amounts of time in the counsellor's office or in the diary room type thing. So do you think it's just that Carl's finding things to say? They probably prompt and say, "What do you think of Sam?" And he'll go, "Oh, this." And then when they do the cutting, or that when they cut it, they're like, "Oh, the only person that had something to say about Sam there was Carl, so we use his audio."
Yeah, maybe. I think Sam sort of messed it up a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, well, they did get some good amounts, like 300.
No, I thought that, and also for the limited time they had, trying to direct everybody. Plus, it's easy to look on a map and for like from above.
Yeah.
When you're boy level
in the water, yeah,
trying to tread water, and probably it's not a warm lake, is it? You know, what I mean, like trying to decide where you are and what to go for. Plus, Bobby's probably shouting some bloody time out. I'll be like, I'm just grabbing the nearest one.
The other thing, it was all in favour of the killer. This because the total amount of the boys added up to like $3,000, and they could only get, how many were there? 8 of them. So they could only get 8 boys in total.
Yeah, but it wasn't like each boy was $4,000 though, was it? 400.
No, it
was
was
like one
some were
400.
Some were 50, some
Yeah.
were 300. So no matter what they got, the killer was always going to go away with at least half the money or more, unless
Yeah.
they did all get the big ones. But even if they got all the big ones, they might only get, say, $2,000 or something. Anyway, easy task for the killer.
What do you think about Carl dragging the actual weight back?
It made me laugh. That did.
Now, two things. He's obviously really fucking stupid, or he's done it on purpose.
Yeah, and that's what I've got, actually. It made me laugh because it's one of those that if he just did that incorrectly, that's really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that may easily be a way of sabotaging it, especially considering...
Oh, I didn't think sabotage. I just thought he's just flexing.
Oh, okay. I thought he was doing
he's
it.
like, oh, it's quite heavy, but I'll go back and I'll just show that I can lift the whole weight up.
Yeah, oh, I can pull that. And yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice because my arms are so massive.
That was light.
Yeah. I wanted to take two, but they wouldn't let me.
I'll take
Rules.
everyone's.
It's the rules. Sam was taking over. He said only one.
Carl, you came back last. That was surprising.
I forgot to unclip it, and it made it hard. So
Just
I brought
dragging
the boy
it back.
and the weight.
It comes to throwing the boys in. Some of them get them in the hoop, others don't. Notably, Sam, Eleanor, Carl, and Sean get theirs in, but no one else does. And poor Holly and Rosie, they had $300 and $400 each, but both missed.
I don't think that's as easy as it looks.
No, definitely not.
I think the boys are fairly light and a weird shape, so it can be quite a weird weight as well.
To be fair, I think when Holly threw hers, didn't it bounce off the ones that were already there? So it was like, unlike Rob, who threw it way over, which we find out later on, was intentional.
It's time to toss your boy.
So the total amount that they gained from this task, from a possible $3,000, was $500, meaning the killer gained $2,500 for this task. I put Rob missing was sus at this point. These notes, by the way, this is the first time that I've written as I've gone through. Normally I watch and then watch, and then when I watch again, I know what I'm looking for. Whereas this time it was very much, I'm going to write as I went along. So some of these, when I took these notes, I didn't actually know the ending. So where I'm like, oh, Rob missing was a bit suspicious. Yes, it was. At this point, the killer has over $6,000 in the pot, whereas the campers have just under $3,000. They have their normal breakaway chats, Eleanor calling and Carl out, which made me laugh, well, for him to go on and point the finger at Rob for not getting his hair wet. In a cutaway, we see Carl is convinced it's down to Sam that they failed the task. And that's throughout this episode, we're frequently reminded that the group think it's Sam and Rob. Now, we've always thought Rob, less so in the last episode, but with all the clues and with everything that we know about him, the fact that he's always wanted to be in his own,
and some of the chat he has sounds so rehearsed.
Oh,
he's overthought of.
Definitely.
I'm going to throw something out there quite early on.
Yeah, okay.
Feels like a show which would have a male and female killer, not two males.
Ooh.
Do you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Like, imagine if it's two guys who are killers now.
Do you know what? As much as we said it wasn't going to be Eleanor, and we kept saying that people suspect Eleanor, but it's not Eleanor.
Now there's two killers. She's on the...
Yeah, but because of the Rob and Eleanor relationship that we'll speak about shortly, it's made me question her.
Do you think it's one of these ones where, again, they just get auto-selected, or at the start, like they're contestants, aren't they? And then it's like, actually, you two are going to be the killers. So do you think that false relationship sort of gets put on them quite early? Or do you think they know the other one is a killer?
Oh, do you know what? I don't know.
Because imagine if they got everybody together and then they snuck me and you off and said, right, you two are the killers. We didn't know each other, but they said, you two are the killers.
Yeah.
The relationship's there straight away because you both know you're hiding something.
But you're right. Do they tell them, right, okay, you're a killer along with Jason? Or has Rob been playing the game thinking he's the only killer?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah,
I'd love to know, actually.
Would it come down to... Because if we are both killers, then I'd be like, Mike, they're on to me. You have to mess this one up.
True. Yeah. You could have secret chats and things, couldn't you?
Yeah, you mess it up. I won't have to mess this one up.
Or would you say, right, we're just not going to talk to each other?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's where that Rob Eleanor thing comes in. The fact that he's so into her and she's like, absolutely not. It makes me wonder whether or not she could be the other killer. I'd love it to be both male and female. Yeah, it could well be.
I think it's that show that it'll be like, yeah, it was like a male and female killer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put my neck on the block, on Bruce's block, and say that the next killer will be female.
Okay. And we'll come up with a name by the end of this episode. The same for that, because we've still got plenty to chat about.
Yeah.
Button in already saying, let's talk about the killer. Honestly, no.
That's on my notes, mate. That's the reason.
Rob's really paranoid, actually, at this stage of the game. Rob's really paranoid that people think he's the killer. All suspicions are on Sam and Rob, as we've mentioned already. We then hear Rob has a thing for Eleanor, but Rob says he's got no chance. And Holly, oh my God, she's so awkward. She's like, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think you have got a chance. She's brutal.
No, she's just
you've got to be honest.
She's honest.
Yeah. I'm completely friend-zoned by Eleanor, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm friend-zoned by everyone, to be honest.
I did like how Carl obviously wants a bit of a confidence boost, so asks Eleanor what a type is, which she basically says like,
"Oh, tall and muscly, tall, dark."
And he goes, "I'm taken."
I'm taken. And
she should have said, "No, I'm talking about Sam."
Yeah, I really miss Warren. Carl also calls her evil because she says that she'd rather Rob die than have to hook up with him. Bit mean.
That is a bit mean, isn't it?
Yeah. Although it's refreshing not to have Carl and Sean shoved in our faces. It's better that we've got someone else or some other love interest, at least for a bit anyway.
I'd rather he died than me have to have this conversation.
Shit, you are evil.
Bruce.
We move on to the next activity, and this one is to get clues as to the killer's identity. It's another blue team versus pink team in what they call postcard mortem. Really clever task.
So is this sort of comments taken from the diary room, I take it?
So yes, they suggest that it's postcards that you've sent home.
It's not.
Sound bites that they've got throughout the series so far, isn't it? Yeah, so all of the campmates have said something incriminating about one another, and it's up to each team to identify who said what. So they need to link the quotes on the postcards to the mugshots of the campmates on the opposite teams. And I think this is great because not only does it give them a game to determine a winning team, but it also reveals that information said by people that they have been trusting.
It stirs the shit up.
It really does, because they've been thinking of saying all this stuff in private, and suddenly, oh, remember yesterday in the councillor's office, you said...
Yeah, I wonder if that stuff they said is the councillor office stuff, or like is the councillor office like pretty much confidential, and it's all this stuff that's been said outside of that.
Oh,
and
maybe
just got
in
caught
the
up.
little groups, and they just took those quotes. Yeah, good shout. They could have,
because otherwise they were going back. They might go back in the councillor's office and just close up now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't want that to be. No, I'm not saying anything anymore.
Exactly.
What do you think about Carl? I'm not saying a word.
Nice guy.
Yeah, let's see what they say actually between now and the end of the series.
Yeah, lovely muscles.
The first postcard out the bag says, "I really like Carl, but I'm not sure I can trust him." And they think it's Sean, and I'm thinking, nah, she can't be saying that already about Carl. Absolutely, they are right. She does say that, and that must hurt. Knowing what he's like, that must have really hurt him.
It's like when you on the Simpsons episode when Lisa says it in front of the crowd, and then you can see Milhouse's heart. Not Milhouse, it's Ralph, and Bart slows it down and says that's the exact point that you see his heart break.
Watch this, Lise. You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half. And now.
The next card that comes out is about fancying Eleanor, and we all know it's obviously going to be Rob. Eleanor has -10 feelings for Rob. She is cold, man.
I like how she puts a value on it.
Yeah.
Is it a 9? No, it's more of a 9 than 10. Out of what?
-10. I think that's as far down as it goes, isn't it? Because normally it's.
Well, I think you go -11.
Oh dear me. The next postcard says they don't think Sam is as nice or as genuine as he makes out to be. I actually think he is.
I think he is.
Yeah, they think. I mean, I'd be highly surprised if he's the killer.
I don't think he is because, and no offense to Sam, he looks like a nasty bastard. Obviously, he's a nice bloke, but when you look at him, he's quite big. He's muscly. He's got tattoos everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, he looks like a nasty bastard.
The stereotype is that
exactly.
He
so
like a thug.
Yeah. So if I was anything, just like he can't be the killer because of that.
Yeah. Or is that because he's a bit of a psychopath?
Maybe.
Anyway, Sam thinks it's Rosie, and it turns out to be Rosie, so he gets that one right. The next one claims that Sean and Carl's relationship is fake, so they think it's Holly. And someone says, Millie.
She's lying, mate. It's her, Millie. Right, go on.
I think that must mean 1,000,000% or something like that. I think it's Rosie going, Millie. Yeah, Millie.
Just singing Little Wayne.
Is that 1,000,000%? Anyway, turns out it was Rob. And this is brilliant. Isn't it weird? Did you see Eleanor say, I thought that those words were mine?
I think I remember saying that, and now I don't know if it's me or not.
Even though she's on the opposite team.
Yeah, I got confused. I was like, what? That doesn't make sense.
Why was she thinking that it could be her when she was on the team?
Yeah.
Anyway, Rob calling them out is brilliant. And he even explains it. He's like, well, this is why, guys. Because you're the classic hunk. What does he say? You're the jock and the cheerleader.
Nicole's like, well, that's what actually happens.
That's what happens. Yes, in films, mate. Fuck me. The next postcard out calls Holly out for not being as innocent as she comes across. I thought it was going to be Jacques, to be honest. But the group say it was Eleanor, and it was. And then next, I don't think me and Sean are really clicking. And they think that's Holly. Or Ollie, as Sean calls her.
I do think this one probably Ollie.
It turns out it is Ollie. It is Holly. This is brilliant. The next one calls out Sam for commandeering conversations a lot. And Carl says, I think it's Jacques. Jacques is really upset. And it's like...
He starts crying.
He cries. And he's like, I don't like how you called me out for it.
What Carl said, didn't really sit well with me. It's not that it was wrong. It's just maybe the way it was said,
It fucking was you.
Yeah.
It literally was you.
And I'd be like, I've been here 72 hours. I hate you all. It doesn't matter.
No, we're all here to try and win a bit of money, killer or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, because of that, and because they called it out, they thought it was Jacques, and it was, it meant that the blue team won and that they get the 4 additional clues to the killer's identity. Really enjoyed that activity, to be honest. When they pick up their clues, they all have a great reaction. But I'm growing increasingly suspicious of Carl purely because all the others, they pick up the cards and they're like, okay. And Carl's like, I don't exactly know what he says.
He's just looking around like this.
Oh, shit. Who could that be?
But equally, you're in a diary room situation, so it could just be overacting for that, situation. Either that or he couldn't read and he had to wait for someone to actually tell him what it said.
They're just pictures.
Sam says he wants to share the clues immediately with everyone. And this is brilliant because then they invite the whole team back, don't they? The other team
because I thought there was going to be some... I think Sean said... Because Sean lost, didn't she? Yeah. Because she was like, I can get something from Carl.
I'll get something from Carl. We're bound to get something from Holly and that sort of thing.
But in the end, they just thought, we shared it all anyway.
Yeah, which, fair play. I wouldn't. So the clues are as follows. Rob tells them that the killer hates peas, and Sam says, I eat them all the time. It's because you don't eat meat, mate, and peas are the only other decent food that's green.
Broccoli?
Oh yeah, broccoli's nice. Spinach is nice.
Kale's
nice. Oh, there's plenty of green, decent foods. I could only think of peas. Yeah, so when Carl tells them that the killer wanted to be an astronaut, Rosie says she thinks it's a man, because that's a man's
job.
That's a man's dream.
Right.
Is it? I mean, when was this filmed? 1968. Jesus Christ. Sam says that people usually assume the killer isn't straight. And I don't know what Jacques says, but he's so funny here. He's like, I'm the killer then, or something. It's just brilliant. Really, really funny.
Very self-aware.
Yeah.
People usually assume the killer is not straight.
Mate, I'm
Holly says the killer can't live without films. And I mean, that's pointed right at Rob. Rob's like, yeah, I work at a fucking cinema. But then Holly could have made it up as they call out.
Yeah, this is it. It does very point to Rob massively.
And knowing what we know now about the end of the episode, it makes you think. I thought it was one of those things of, this massively points to Rob, but it definitely won't be now. I really did. Jacques calls out Carl, and I actually quite like their little chat that they have. Better than the usual Sean and Carl bullshit that we get. And they get a nice little hug at the end as well, which is lovely.
Did you take offence?
I did a bit, yeah.
Well, don't.
So we get an early campfire this episode. No immunity
before you get to the campfire, and it's only say music again on point, because they obviously did a lot of 80s songs generally, but this leading up to the campfire was Nightcall by Kavinsky.
Yeah.
From Drive, yeah.
Out of place? Because it's all
no.
80s?
Yeah, no, it's not out of place. It's just a banger.
Oh, it is a banger. It is a really good tune.
I'm really anxious about this elimination. I know who I'm going to vote for.
So they have the early campfire with no immunity challenge. And going into this, we know that it's Rob versus Sam, and the clue about the film is the biggest tell. Do you want to know my next comment?
Oh, it might be
says, I'm telling you, though, there is no way on earth they are getting the killer at the midpoint of the series.
What on past Mike. So everyone jumped on Rob, didn't they? It was like Rob. And it's one of those ones where when you get the vibe, even if you don't think it's Rob, even if you get the vibe of the group, if Rob's going to be the majority, yeah, I'll just stick his name down.
Yeah.
Because it's an easy win, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, rather than upset someone else and you both be stuck in later on.
Exactly, yeah. It's an easy win. I can't remember who says it, but justifying the answer, he goes, I don't think he's capable of murder. And I'm thinking, they're not actually murdering. Like, it's like a serious comment.
I'm going for Rob because I don't think Sam's capable of murder, one way or another, something like that. Yeah,
yeah. And it's like, I don't think. Like, is there something about Sam we don't know? Like, he is capable of murder.
Honestly, and then they all get like kind of upset, don't they? Like the fact that they've got to vote, and I'm sure Holly, she's gutted. She's like, "I'm sorry, Rob. I'm sorry." It's like, well, change your mind then. You can say someone else.
Yeah, Bobby.
Such a hard decision. I'm really sorry.
So yeah, they all vote and explain why. Jacques votes for Rob, Carl votes for Rob, Rob votes for Sam, he had to. Sean votes for Rob, Sam votes for Rob, again had to. Rosie votes for Sam, Holly votes for Rob. And past Mike, you ready?
Oh, this is brilliant.
You can tell it's not him. He's so emotional.
What, Rob is?
Yeah, and then they fucking reveal that he's the killer. What is going on? My mind honestly exploded. Like, I have no idea what the next 2 episodes are going to be like. What is going on? This is amazing. Genuinely, what is going like? Because I knew they could never end the show because there's 5 episodes, and yet there they are telling us.
Is it 5? I thought it was 6.
No, it's only 5.
Is there?
Yeah.
Blimey.
Strange, isn't it? I think it was a Monday to Friday.
What did you think? Did you think like they've got him on the 3rd episode? Next 2 is just like recapping the last 3.
The next 2 are just a disco that they have with all the songs from the first 2 episodes.
Bruce is DJ. That's the 4th episode, and the 5th episode is the reunion, which is just a week later. So also I put Rob's the killer. Again, I've said the clues were quite easy. Now we might find out they could be about the second killer.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you. Was we know that a lot of them do relate to Rob,
like steak and Thai food and all that. He changed that, didn't he?
Oh yeah, you're right. And we know the fact that he couldn't live without films. We know that he said early on about wanting to be in a horror film, and it's his. But is the other person, as you say, have they made this other person? Because Rob was very much that stereotypical movie nerd, wanted to be in his own film, and you know, if anyone's going to survive a horror movie, it's going to be me, etc. There's no one else like him. There's no one else with that agenda that we know of.
Yeah.
Is there someone else then in camp which is either outright lying about who they are or what they do, or is it more that they realise halfway through the series they fucked it and they're like, shit, they've got the killer already. We've got to extend it by another few episodes.
This is it. I knew you said, you know, the press packet said that, but I honestly felt like they'd found the killer too early.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, there's actually a second killer,
and now they've given it to someone else in camp and said,
actually, you've got the opportunity now to win this money if people like find out it's you. Do you think then in episode 4, if someone gets voted out and they're like, yeah, I was the killer, they'll be like, shit,
there was a 3rd killer.
There was 3 killers.
Or do they make sure this next one isn't like they've given those clues too much?
Don't do votes anymore.
And the
don't
next
do
one,
votes.
yeah, no more clues or anything. Like
no more clues, no more voting. We decide who goes and gets killed.
Yeah.
One thing about Rob was the copper come in and got him.
Yeah.
And then I think they said, "Oh, were our friendships real?" Which, yeah, of course they were. I mean, he was obviously trying to manipulate what he could.
Definitely.
Very awful.
Well, I'm sure he fancied Eleanor.
Yeah, but I was thinking, mate, you've been caught. Just play the act at this point. Just go for it. Be like, no, I want to kill you all.
Yeah.
I'm mental.
I'm desperate for your blood and all this.
Yeah, yeah. But instead he's like, all right, see you later.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But then that comes down to the fact that was he just chosen to be the killer as opposed to someone acting? And I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
He was one of the 11 and he happened to draw the killer card.
Yeah. And also, I'm sure he just walks off, doesn't he?
No, he does a nice Scooby-Doo reference, and I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
Yeah, but then what happens?
Well, no, then we get another story from Bobby.
Yeah, but does Rob just walk off? A copper didn't come in and arrest him.
That's a point. We don't see the copper walking towards Rob to get him. He just walks towards a cop car, a inverted commas cop car, because they probably filmed it separately. So
that's what I mean. I want to see like a copper come in and like tackle him over the
kick
wooden
him
log
to his knees and get him.
Well, everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure manipulating, lying to you, and murdering all your friends. But well done. I probably would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
But no, we get the next scary story, the best one of all so far.
Mm-hmm.
Rob's now in the back of the police car. The killer is in the middle of the road. The cop stops his car and heads into the woods to have a look at what he's seen. With Rob in the car, Bruce starts smashing through the window, drags Rob out and starts beating him to death with a hammer.
And blood's going everywhere.
And that is exactly what we were asking for.
100% brutal.
And he started beating him to death with the hammer! Really slowly! But he pummeled his face until it was just a mush!
Had we have done this week on week like we did Murder Island, I would have genuinely thought they'd listened to episode 2. Because it was just so... How have they... Everything we were saying in the last episode about what we wanted to see. We wanted to see a brutal death scene from the killer. We want the killer to fuck him up a little bit, scare him a little bit, go into the rooms and rattle a few doors. And that is exactly what's happened in this episode.
Yeah. I said that's a better kill. And they had a Creep by Radiohead. Wasn't Radiohead singing it?
Slowed down.
It was very like exactly. It was just perfect.
And then Bruce steals the cop car and speeds away listening to Spandau Ballet at the end, which is just fantastic.
Bruce got into the driver's seat and he turned up his favorite radio station. And then he sped away. He sped away listening to the fucking Spandau Ballet!
And then obviously cut back to the fire, and Bobby suggests they've all won the money if it wasn't for the wicked twist, and that Rob wasn't acting alone. There is a second killer amongst them, and has been all along. And that's the challenge. I don't know if there was all along. If there was, fair bloody play. But I'm not sure that was the case, or that was just, oh shit, afterthought.
There has been a second killer amongst you this whole time.
Right, let's have a think. If they got to the end and they didn't realise it was Rob, then Rob would have to split that money 50-50.
That's a good point. If they...
Would they say at the end, being like, oh, it was Rob and Holly? Although I think, right, we'll get onto it in a minute, but yeah, like, I don't know, just, like I said, it does feel a little bit like they fucked up.
I was amazed. I loved it. I really, really liked that they did this.
No, like, a second killer is a typical horror movie trope anyway, isn't it? Like,
True.
Like,
maybe we should have anticipated it.
The whole Scream thing, that's 2 killers all the way through, but it's always perceived as one. But yeah. Right, anyway, who do you think the killer is?
Mate, I was so in on Rob. I just don't know.
Why did Rob get killed anyway? Surely he's like commanding Bruce. Like I don't care too much about Killer Camp lore, to be fair.
Can't remember if they mentioned that. But it might be in Bobby's story, but I honestly can't remember.
I don't think it matters.
Or was it the second killer commanded?
Maybe
it was that he didn't want to get ratted out.
To shut his mouth.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. That sounds good.
That's exactly what it was.
So it's Killer Camp fan fiction going on.
I'll be like, honestly, the most... I can't see how it can be, but the person that acts the most suspicious, you know, when we were looking at Rob and there were little things that he was doing that I thought, oh, the next most suspicious person is Carl. Like, his awkwardness. It's, oh, what's Sex on a Balcony like? Who's Avril Lavigne? And it's
really got to you, that, hasn't it?
Things. It just bugs me a little bit. But then here's another challenge. If we don't know, if they've only just decided, say, after Rob's gone, that they need a second killer and they're going to draw a second killer, we would have no idea because that person hasn't started acting up yet.
That's true.
So we can't base it on anything we've seen before.
If we go with that
If, though,
theory,
they were already and always were a killer, then we can look at their behaviours and things.
Yeah, so you could naturally say Eleanor.
But again, Eleanor massively suspect because one, everybody's thought her from the start.
And they've thought Rob as well, and they've got that right.
Yeah, and with Eleanor, it makes me think, like, what do they see that we don't? We don't see everything on TV, do we?
Yeah, there's hours of footage.
And going with that, having a man and a woman, and knowing about the Rob-Eleanor relationship, especially in this episode, it's like, oh, all suspicions are on Rob, and Rob happens to now announce, oh yeah, I really like Eleanor. It's like, oh, is there something in that?
Yeah. And the group has like sort of cooled off of Eleanor a little bit now, haven't they?
Yeah, massively.
Because they went for Rob.
Yeah, well, Sam's still going to be the next, if they're going to have another vote straight away. Not that they will, but if they were to vote who's the other killer,
Maybe Sam.
I'm sure they'd have all gone Sam, yeah.
Yeah. So who do you think it's going to be?
The killer.
Who do you... Right,
I don't know how to respond to that.
Ooh. Siri said, I don't know how to answer that.
Imagine if Siri came up with the killer then, just ruined the whole show.
Siri's like, yeah, it's Sean.
No, that's who I think who I'm going for. In my heart, I want it to be Sean.
I'd love it. I would love that.
Right. In my head, I'll probably go with Eleanor.
Yeah, Ellen. For me, it's Eleanor or Carl.
But just for a sucker punch, I want it to be Sean. So bad.
If we can have, like, of the people that you want to win the money, Holly, Sam, Jacques, maybe.
Holly, Sam, Jacques. Yeah.
There's a few of them that you want either to be the killer and not get caught.
Those are my top three.
To catch the killer at the end, yeah.
Yeah, Holly, Sam, Jacques. In that order, I think, for me as well.
But now, like, I'll be honest, I think losing Warren and Rob in quick succession, it's a real shame because they were both good to have in the show. I think we're really going to miss them as characters or.
I'm trying to think if Sean was the killer from the start and she knew it, what were the two tasks like that she didn't participate in?
Oh yeah, she didn't do the water task. She didn't go underwater with the
rope, but that's fine because Rob was there.
Yeah.
And you think two lots got out then as well. Like one lot was halfway up the bank.
This is the thing. We were like, oh, Rob just got drawn the short rope. He didn't.
Well, he did in theory because
yeah, but equally, it's like no wonder he stayed dry. Could he have done a better job at hiding, maybe?
Oh, just jump on the floor, mate, and look like you're going up and down, like.
Or is it all a ruse, and they did it on purpose? They led them to Rob on purpose, and that's why the clues were so easy to point towards.
Maybe.
Rob.
What was the other one Sean didn't do?
There was another one, but I can't.
The boy one. Was it the boy one? No,
she did that in this episode. She was back.
So it was the mud one.
What did they do last time? Oh, paddleboards, maybe. Yeah, it was paddleboarding.
Which is just nails anyway, because you could look at that in isolation and say, oh, Jacques Audet, because he's literally getting electrocuted, stood up on the ball.
Yeah, but then Rob caught that ball and then wobbled like anything, didn't he? And we said at the time.
Oh, he took a dive, didn't he? Yeah. All right. Cool.
On to the next one, mate. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week for another episode of Killer Camp. In the meantime, visit jasonandmike.com or come and say hello on Twitter. We're @PresentsJam.
Fucking Spandau Ballet!